3 days after his father was laid to rest, a message lit up Ethan's phone. The vineyard is sold. We're in Tuscany. Don't call. He stood still at the sink, water running over his cold hands. The glass in his grip slipped slightly, tapping against the metal with a dull, hollow sound. Then he smiled, a small smile, barely there. Because 24 hours before his sister's flight, Ethan had already done something no one in the family saw coming. He had locked down every single asset his father owned. Not out of suspicion, but because he had been waiting for this exact moment. From the outside, everyone believed Vanessa Cole was the one in control. 4 years older than Ethan, she spoke as if every decision in the family had to pass through her first. The kind of woman who could walk into a room and make people turn, with a perfect smile, a carefully measured voice, and an effortless ability to make others believe she was always right. Ethan was different. He was the one people overlooked at parties. Quiet, observant, the man standing in the corner, listening to conversations others assumed no one noticed. But Ethan understood the law. He understood how money moved. And more importantly, he understood people. The Cole family vineyard sat on a hillside overlooking Napa Valley, rows of vines stretching endlessly, curving with the land like lines etched into a palm. It wasn't just land. It was 30 years of their father's life. It was where Ethan used to run barefoot between the vines on summer afternoons, where his father would stand for hours, inspecting each cluster, as if they could speak back to him. Vanessa never liked the place. Years ago at a family dinner, she called it a dead investment. Their father had only smiled. Ethan hadn't. He still remembered the look in his father's eyes. Not anger, not disappointment, just a quiet kind of sadness, like he understood something he chose not to say out loud. When the illness began, it didn't arrive all at once. It crept in, repeated stories, forgotten names, longer pauses between words. And then Vanessa's calls started coming more often. She asked about paperwork, about accounts, about whether their father had updated the will, always concerned, always reasonable. Ethan never answered directly, he just listened. Lucas, Vanessa's husband, began showing up at the vineyard more frequently too, bringing talk of investment opportunities, rising markets, and optimizing assets. A fast-talking man with a loud laugh, always chasing something just out of reach. Ethan saw what they thought no one saw: unpaid bills, late-night calls, one accidental moment, numbers flashing across Lucas's laptop screen when he forgot to close his email. Debt. Not the kind you fix in a few months, the kind that needs a miracle or an inheritance. 6 months before his father passed, the old man called Ethan into his study. No one else. No small talk, just a folder placed quietly on the desk. "You understand this better than anyone," he said. Ethan didn't ask questions. He just nodded. He knew exactly what it was. And from that moment on, he also knew what would happen when his father was gone. Back in the present, Ethan set the glass down. The sink had filled, water spilling slightly over the edge. He didn't notice. The message still glowed on his screen. Somewhere thousands of miles away, Vanessa believed she had already won, that everything was settled, that Ethan was still the quiet younger brother, the one who never pushed back. But Vanessa had forgotten one thing: the quietest person in the room is usually the one who has been watching every move, and this time, Ethan had not just been watching, he had been preparing. Danger does not always arrive as a sudden shock. Sometimes it comes slowly, quietly, and stays just long enough for people to grow used to it. After the funeral, everything in the Cole family settled into a kind of artificial silence. Relatives drifted away, condolences faded, leaving behind a large house filled with long hallways and the lingering scent of old wood. Ethan stayed for a few more days, not because he wanted to, but because he needed to. Vanessa stayed as well, but unlike Ethan, she did not spend her time remembering their father. She moved through the house like someone surveying an estate, her eyes passing over every painting, every wine shelf, every drawer. Lucas was even more obvious. He talked a lot, too much, about markets, about opportunities, about timing. speaking as if their father's death was simply an event that had opened a financial window. Ethan did not react. He simply watched. On the second night after the funeral, they sat together in the dining room, the silence stretching longer than usual, the sound of cutlery against plates dry and sharp. Vanessa was the one who broke it. "I think we should talk about the vineyard." Her voice was gentle, almost caring, but Ethan recognized it immediately. It was not a question, it was a move. Ethan set his glass down. "The will is very clear." Vanessa smiled. "I know, but things can be adjusted, if it makes sense." Lucas leaned in, his voice quick and energetic. "What I mean is, the market is strong right now. If we sell, we maximize value. Holding on to it is just emotional." A pause followed. Ethan looked at them, not angry, not responding right away, just a look long enough to make Vanessa shift slightly in her seat. "Father did not see it as an asset," Ethan said slowly. "He saw it as a legacy." Lucas gave a light laugh. "Even a legacy has to be practical." Ethan said nothing more. He knew this conversation was not about persuasion. It was about testing, and they were watching to see how he would react. That night, Ethan did not sleep right away. He sat in his father's old study, the warm yellow light falling across stacks of files still resting on the desk. He opened each one, not because he had not seen them before, but because he needed certainty. Everything was in order: the will, the authority, the process, no gaps, no weaknesses. But people do not need gaps to create problems. The next morning, Vanessa appeared at the doorway without knocking, just standing there as if she had the right to enter any space. "Are you okay?" she asked. Ethan nodded. She stepped inside slowly. "I know you are under a lot of pressure. Handling everything like this is not easy." It sounded like concern, but it was an offer disguised. Ethan did not look up. "I can handle it." Vanessa smiled, but her eyes did not change. "If you need help, just say it. Accounts, paperwork, I can take care of it." The same offer again, only phrased differently. Ethan closed the file. "No." Short, firm. Vanessa stood still for a few seconds, then nodded. "Your choice." As she walked away, Ethan heard her footsteps pause briefly in the hallway, just for a moment, then continue. She was thinking, and that meant her plan had not stopped. That afternoon, Ethan walked out to the vineyard. The wind moved gently through the rows of vines. Everything looked the same, unchanged. But he knew beneath that calm surface, something was shifting, a plan forming, a move already set in motion. Somewhere, Vanessa believed she was ahead, but Ethan had seen the entire board long before this, and he knew the next move would not be words, it would be action. Some decisions are never spoken out loud, they simply get carried out. On the third day after the funeral, Vanessa disappeared early in the morning. No goodbye, no explanation, just a car pulling out of the driveway, its tires rolling slowly over damp gravel still heavy with morning dew. Ethan saw it, but he did not ask. He was used to not asking. By noon, Lucas returned alone, stepping into the house with restless energy, like someone who had just finished something important. His phone stayed in his hand, the screen lighting up and dimming over and over. "Vanessa went out to handle something," he said, as if Ethan had asked. Ethan nodded, nothing more. Lucas walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, but he did not drink. He just held it, turning it slightly in his hand, his eyes unfocused. A man waiting. A man worried. That afternoon, Ethan received an email. Not from Vanessa, not from Lucas, but from a real estate brokerage firm. The subject line was short: transfer submission, confirmation. Ethan read every line slowly, carefully, not rushing, not missing anything. The Cole family vineyard, the seller's name, the signature, the seller was his father. Ethan did not react immediately. He closed the email, placed his phone on the table, and stood still for a long moment. Not out of surprise, but out of confirmation. Everything had unfolded exactly as he expected. That evening, Vanessa returned, stepping into the house with calm composure, as if she had simply taken a walk through town. Her coat still carried the scent of wind, her hair neatly tied back. Everything about her looked perfect. Too perfect. "How was your day?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at her a second longer than usual. "Fine." A simple answer, but enough for Vanessa to understand that he was not going to ask anything further. They had dinner together, another quiet meal, but this time the atmosphere had changed. Lucas spoke less, Vanessa as well, but their eyes were different now, the eyes of people who had crossed a line. After dinner, Ethan returned to his father's study. He opened his laptop and pulled up the email again, reading it once more, the signature. He zoomed in. The lines, the angle, the spacing between each letter. It did not match. Not completely. An ordinary person would not notice, but Ethan was not ordinary. He had reviewed hundreds of signatures in legal files. He knew the difference between a natural signature and one that had been practiced. This one had been practiced very well, but it was still a forgery. Ethan leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes for a brief moment. Vanessa had not waited. She had acted the moment the opportunity appeared, which meant her plan had not just formed overnight. It had been prepared long before this, carefully, patiently. He opened another file. The asset list, accounts, ownership records. Everything was still there. Nothing had been withdrawn. Nothing had been transferred. But that did not mean it was safe. It only meant they had not finished yet. One more step, just one more step. Ethan stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the vineyard in the dark. The rows of vines stood silent under the faint moonlight. A place that once meant peace had now become a target. He knew what Vanessa was thinking. She believed he would be slow, that he would hesitate, that he would try to keep the peace, just like before. But Vanessa had missed one thing. Ethan was no longer the quiet younger brother standing in the corner. He was the one in control now, and he did not need to say it out loud. He only needed to act. The next morning, Ethan left the house early. No one saw him go. No one asked where he was headed. When Vanessa woke up, everything still looked the same, but in truth, nothing was the same anymore. Because while she believed she had already moved one step ahead, Ethan had begun his decisive move, a move that once completed would leave no way back. The truth rarely arrives like an explosion. It comes quietly, almost unnoticed, and by the time you realize it, it is already too late to turn back. The call came in the morning. Just as Ethan stepped out of a law office, an unfamiliar number, he almost ignored it, but then he answered. The man on the other end sounded hesitant, the kind of hesitation that comes from someone who knows they are standing in the middle of something that is not right. "We need to verify a transaction related to a property owned by the Cole family." Ethan did not respond immediately. He walked slowly toward his car, opened the door, and sat down. "Can you be more specific?" A brief pause. "A transfer contract has been submitted. We just need to confirm the signature." The word signature landed softly, but it was enough to make everything clear. Ethan stared ahead, the parking lot nearly empty, sunlight reflecting off the windshield, creating a still, unmoving image. "Whose signature?" "The owner," before he passed. Ethan gave a small nod, though the man could not see it. "I will be there shortly." He ended the call. No rush, no panic, just confirmation. When Ethan walked into the office, everything appeared normal. The receptionist smiled, the air was quiet. No one knew that a wrong decision had just arrived here. The manager handed him the contract. Ethan took it and turned each page, slowly, carefully. The property name, the vineyard, the seller, his father, the signature. He stopped there. The shape was familiar, but something was off, not in appearance, but in rhythm. A real signature always flows naturally, a continuity that cannot be perfectly replicated. This one paused in the middle, just slightly, but enough. Someone had tried to imitate it, very well, but not well enough. Ethan placed the contract down. "When was this signed?" The manager checked the file. 2 days ago. 2 days, after his father had already passed. There was no longer any doubt. Ethan nodded. Can I see the original scan? They opened the file and zoomed in. Another detail surfaced. The notary seal. It did not belong to this area. It came from a location hours away. Ethan did not ask more. He did not need to. He had enough. When he left the office, he did not call Vanessa. He did not call Lucas. He called his lawyer. The conversation was short, clear, without emotion. We begin. And from that moment, everything shifted into a different phase. No longer suspicion, no longer observation, but action. Ethan returned to the bank where his father held the main accounts. He presented the documents, the authority, the records. Everything was valid. He opened a new account under his control, then transferred all the assets, leaving no trace. Except for one detail. He left a small amount in the original account. Not a mistake, but intentional. A door left slightly open. A trap. That afternoon, Ethan returned to the vineyard, the wind stronger than usual, the rows of vines rustling like whispers. He stood on the familiar ground, but the feeling had changed. It was no longer a place of memory. It was something that needed to be protected. Somewhere far away, Vanessa believed everything was complete, that the contract had been submitted, that the money would soon arrive. She thought she was ahead, but she did not realize that her move had triggered Ethan's entire plan, a plan that did not require noise, did not require immediate confrontation, only precision, and a certain cold clarity. Ethan glanced down at his phone, no new messages yet, but he knew it would come. Once they realized the money was no longer there, and when that moment arrived, everything would change. It would no longer be a game. It would be a war. And this time, Ethan was not just defending, he was controlling the entire board. The call came in the middle of the day. An international number. Ethan stared at the screen for a few seconds, then answered. Ethan. There was no greeting on the other end, just heavy breathing, a silence that stretched longer than it should. Then Vanessa's voice came through. What did you do? The softness was gone, the calm facade gone. All that remained was panic, barely contained. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his expression steady. I did what I was supposed to do. Don't talk to me like that, Vanessa cut in. Where is the money? A direct question, no more circling. Ethan did not answer immediately. He let the silence linger for another beat, long enough for Vanessa to understand that this time, she was not the one in control. The money is where it should be, he said slowly. In our father's estate. A faint noise came through the line. Maybe Lucas. Maybe a door slamming shut. The sound of a place far away. A hotel, a different city. Vanessa lowered her voice. We need to talk. We are talking. Not over the phone. Ethan gave a slight smile. Really? When you signed a fake contract, you didn't seem to need a conversation. Silence followed, longer this time. Ethan could picture her expression, the pause, the calculation, deciding whether to deny or redirect. She chose the second. You don't understand everything, Vanessa said, her tone soft again. Some things have to be done quickly. Opportunities don't wait. Opportunities, Ethan repeated. Or debt. A sharp intake of breath, he continued, his voice still calm, but each word clearer. 4 credit card accounts, overdue, a personal loan unpaid, and an investment that failed, something Lucas hasn't fully told you about yet. On the other end, Lucas went completely silent. Vanessa said nothing. This silence was not strategy, it was exposure. You've been watching us, she asked quietly. No, Ethan said. I've been paying attention. A simple answer, but enough. Ethan sat up straight. He recognized this moment, the shift from defense to control. I'll make it simple, he said. You have 2 options. No one interrupted. Option 1. You come back. We meet. You sign documents relinquishing any control over the estate. I do not pursue this legally. You receive what is stated in the will. Nothing more. Vanessa exhaled slowly. And the second option, Ethan glanced toward the window, sunlight cutting across the desk in a sharp line. I submit everything to the authorities. No raised voice, no threat, just fact. Forgery, fraud, all of it, and all of it documented. A pause. Then he added slower. And this time, everything becomes public. On the other end, there was no background noise anymore, no movement, just silence. Ethan knew they were looking at each other, calculating, realizing they had gone too far to walk back without consequences. Vanessa spoke again. You would do that to your own family. The familiar question, the familiar tactic, turning morality into leverage. Ethan closed his eyes for a brief second, then opened them. You already did. A short answer, without emotion, but it ended everything. Vanessa did not respond. For the first time, she had nothing left to use. No reason, no story, no mask, only the truth. Ethan glanced at the time. You have 2 days, he said. After that, I decide. He did not wait for a reply. He ended the call. The room fell silent again. No voices, no tension, just a clear, undeniable feeling. Everything had changed. Somewhere far away, Vanessa was beginning to understand that the game was over. And this time, Ethan was not the one left behind. He was the one deciding how it ended. They came back 2 days later. No notice, no call, just showing up at the house in the late afternoon, when the sunlight had softened and the rows of vines outside stretched long shadows across the ground. Ethan was already there, waiting. He did not stand when they walked in, did not show surprise, he just looked at them. Vanessa stepped in first, her posture still straight, but the confidence she usually carried was gone. Her eyes moved across the room, then stopped on Ethan for a second longer than usual. Lucas followed behind her, silent, his shoulders slightly lowered, like someone who had just realized he was no longer in control of anything. No one said hello. The air between them was heavy, filling every inch of the space. Sit, Ethan said. His voice was calm, not commanding, but not something that could be refused. They sat down, a wooden table between them, 3 people, a distance that could not be closed. Ethan placed 2 folders on the table and pushed them toward Vanessa. You should read this. Vanessa did not open them right away. She looked at him instead. Are you sure you want to take it this far? A final question, a final chance to turn back. Ethan did not answer, he just held her gaze, and Vanessa understood. She opened the first folder, asset lists, ownership records, accounts, everything laid out clearly, nothing missing. She flipped through it quickly, not reading in detail, because she already knew that part. The second folder, she opened more slowly. The first page, the contract, then the enlarged signature, then the comparison, marked lines, small inconsistencies, unnatural pauses. Lucas leaned closer, his expression shifting. Vanessa kept turning the pages, security images, timestamps, locations, call records, one after another, nothing left out, nothing that could be denied. The room stayed silent, except for the soft sound of paper turning. Finally, Vanessa stopped, her hand resting on the table, not shaking, but no longer steady. You prepared all of this, she said. Not a question. Ethan nodded. From the beginning. A short answer, but enough to make everything clear. Vanessa leaned back, closed her eyes for a brief moment, and when she opened them again, something had changed. No more negotiation, only acceptance. Your terms, she said. Ethan pointed to the last page of the folder. There. Vanessa looked down. Relinquish any control, no dispute, accept only what is stated in the will, nothing more. Lucas took a slow breath. And if we don't sign? Ethan looked at him. For the first time. You already know. No explanation needed. Lucas looked down at the table and said nothing more. A long silence followed. Then Vanessa picked up the pen. No hesitation, no argument, she signed. One firm stroke, not elegant, not careful, just final. Lucas signed after her, slower, his hand pausing for a brief second before finishing. It was over in minutes, faster than any argument could have been. Vanessa set the pen down and looked up at Ethan. You've changed. Ethan did not respond immediately. He looked at her, no longer defensive. No, he said. I just stopped at the right time. Vanessa said nothing else. She stood up, Lucas followed, and they left without looking back. The door closed behind them, a quiet sound, but enough to end everything. The room fell silent again. Ethan sat alone, not feeling victory, not feeling regret, just empty. He stood up and walked outside. The wind moved through the vines as if nothing had ever happened. Everything looked the same, but it was not. No one was waiting to take it anymore. No one standing behind the scenes calculating, only quiet. And for the first time in days, Ethan felt like he did not need to be on guard anymore. He looked out across the land, the evening light covering the vineyard in a warm, soft glow. A place that had once been threatened was now safe. Not because he had won, but because he had protected what needed to be protected. He stood there for a long moment, not thinking about Vanessa, not thinking about Lucas, only about his father and the promise he had kept. Before going back inside, Ethan paused for a second. If you were in his place, would you have done it differently, or would you have chosen to protect instead of forgive? Leave your thoughts below, and if you want to hear more stories like this, make sure you follow. If this story made you think differently about trust, family, or standing up for yourself, take a moment and share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have made the same choice or taken a different path? Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy real-life drama stories, and subscribe for more powerful storytelling like this. Your support helps bring more stories to life. And remember, sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who sees everything.